You know, when it comes to attraction, so much of what's really going on is communicated without a single word being said. It's this whole complex dance of subtle signals and unspoken feelings. So let's dive in and really try to understand the psychology behind it all.
So, the big question is, how do you actually read those signals? How do you figure out what someone's really feeling when they're not saying it out loud? It can feel like a total mystery, but lucky for us, behavioral science gives us some amazing clues, and that's exactly what we're going to break down today.
All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to start by looking beyond the words. Then we'll get into the unspoken language of the body. After that, we'll cover the big changes in expression and the signs of a really deep connection. And we'll wrap it all up by revealing the one thing that underpins everything else, and that's trust.
Okay, so the first thing we really need to get is that signs of attraction are almost never these big, obvious announcements. Nope, they're found in the little things, these subtle, even unconscious shifts that give away what's happening on a much deeper psychological level. First up, let's talk about the body. I mean, long before we ever say a word, our physical presence is already communicating our interest, a lot of times in ways we don't even consciously realize. Let's look at some of the biggest signals.
Eye contact. Okay, this is a classic, but the secret here is what some psychologists call retention time. See, it's not just about making eye contact, it's about how long you hold it. A casual gaze is quick, just a glance. But when attraction is in the mix, that eye contact lingers for just a beat longer. Or you get that classic move, the sustained look followed by a shy glance away. It's a huge indicator of interest.
We all have one, right? That invisible bubble of personal space. With strangers, we generally keep them about 45 centimeters away, or roughly arm's length. When someone crosses that line uninvited, it can make us feel tense or on alert. It's a really powerful, unspoken boundary.
So this is where it gets interesting. What happens when someone willingly lets you into that space? Or better yet, when they close that distance themselves? When someone is totally cool with you being close enough for your shoulders to brush while you're talking, that's a massive signal. It means they feel safe, and it shows a desire for closeness, an unconscious wish to feel your warmth and your presence. And then there are these little tells, these unconscious self-touching gestures, things like playing with her hair, touching her lips, or stroking her neck. These actions kind of do two things at once. On one hand, they help relieve a little bit of that nervous energy, but on the other, they also subconsciously draw attention to feminine features. It's like a quiet signal saying, hey, notice me. All right, so let's move on to our next section, because this is where things start to build. It's not just pure body language. Attraction also changes how a person expresses themselves, through their voice, their choice of words, and, yeah, even their appearance. Ever notice this? It's pretty fascinating. Some studies show that when a woman is attracted to someone, or biologically, during ovulation, her vocal tone can actually change. It might become a little bit higher, a bit softer, more melodic. It's a super subtle shift, but it's another one of those unconscious signals of interest. The conversation itself also takes a huge turn. You'll notice a move away from those safe general topics, work, hobbies, current events, to things that are way more personal, way more intimate. You start talking about things like ideal relationships, preferences, maybe even sharing some personal vulnerabilities. This shift is a dead giveaway that the psychological walls are coming down.
I love this quote from the source material because it just perfectly captures the why behind changes in appearance. It's not just about trying to look good in general. Choosing a specific perfume, wearing a softer fabric, or putting on a little more makeup is often a way of sending a very specific message that says, with you, I want to be seen as a woman.
Okay, now we're getting to the really good stuff. These are the signs that show a much deeper connection is starting to form. We're moving beyond that initial spark of attraction and into the territory of genuine emotional intimacy. Think about it. Time is our most valuable resource, so how someone chooses to spend it with you says everything. At first, they might keep a bit of a polite distance, maybe slow to respond. But as interest grows, they start to prioritize you, actively suggesting plans. And then you hit that third stage, where you're together and they openly say they don't want the night to end. That's a huge tell. A person's reaction to physical contact is one of the clearest signals you can get, but here's the key. It's not just about the absence of a negative reaction, it's about the presence of a positive one. If a light, casual touch on the arm is met with a smile, or their body relaxes, or they even touch you back, well, that's a pretty clear sign that both trust and desire are in the room.
We have all been there, right? That horrible, awkward silence where you both feel this frantic pressure to say something, anything, just to fill the void. That kind of silence feels uncomfortable because the connection is still pretty surface level. It hasn't found its footing yet.
But then, when a connection really deepens, something amazing happens. The silence stops being awkward and becomes, well, comfortable. It's that beautiful space where you don't need words because just being in each other's presence is enough to feel connected and secure. That right there is a powerful, powerful sign of deep trust. And that brings us to the most important part of this whole thing. We've looked at all these different signals, but what do they really mean? What's the common thread? It all boils down to one single foundational emotion.
So after all that, after looking at eye contact, personal space, conversation, and even silence, what is the one thing that ties all these signals of attraction together? What's really going on here? And here it is. This is the core takeaway. Being able to read these signs isn't really about being a desire detector. It's about being able to sense trust. Because every glance, every gesture, every shared secret, they aren't just signs of attraction. At their core, they are signs that a woman feels safe, respected, and accepted with you.
And that's really the bottom line. You could see a dozen of these so-called signs, but if that deep underlying foundation of trust isn't there, they're basically meaningless. True intimacy, both emotional and physical, is just not possible without that bedrock of safety and security.
And so that really leaves us with a final, big idea to think about. Maybe the goal shouldn't be to get better at decoding signals like you're some kind of detective. Maybe the real goal is to become the kind of person who naturally inspires trust, to focus on actively building a foundation of safety and respect where a real connection can actually grow. So, what do you think changes when you stop looking for signs and start building trust?